There's a concept called the reverse entrepreneurship effect, and that is really the problem that I guess we are trying to solve, and that a lot of people are trying to solve in this process.
Welcome to today's episode of the Seven Figure Journey podcast. My name is David Gilliland, one of your hosts. We are delighted to have Patrick Israel with STEM Media with us. Patrick, welcome to the show.
Thank you, David. Happy to be here.
You're calling out of Florida, and excited to just talk with people who always stay warm all year long. Right now, the rest of us, I'm normally in the West, and it's just hot out there right now. But glad to have you on the beautiful state of Florida. Tell us just a
Thank
little
you.
bit, Patrick. STEM media, the way you've described it to me is, you really foster the community across the nation of entrepreneurship for creators, right? Like, how do they do this, and how do they go, and then your business will also manage all of that business side for creators, so they can do what they do best. How did you get into this in the first place? And if I misrepresented, please tell us better what you do and sort of the essence.
No, I think you got the jizz, and it's a really unique and new way of doing business, and how these creators are ultimately building their own media companies, and that's really what each creator is. Most people's perception of creators is that they're just people recording, and that's really what they are, but there's a much bigger operation behind it, and they are all building individual media entities. It's just the product is themselves, is the content that they create, and they hire agencies like ours to ultimately build the business, focus on monetization, so that creators can focus on what they do best, which is create content, engage with their communities. And how we got into this business, and I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs have similar stories, it was really by accident. I was in the process of selling my first business, Extend company, which we helped international companies grow in the US. I'm still very involved in the business. And I met, our first creator, Tyler Blanchard, who I met him actually at an event here in South Florida, and he had 10,000 subscribers at the time. And I met this guy, and I said, he is a star. He is such a character, and so authentic, and so funny and so unique. And I said, what do you want to do with your life? Like, what are you doing? And he said, hey, man, I'm moving to LA in the next few months, and I want to pursue this content creation career. I'm going to start posting on YouTube. I have these ideas. And I said to him, look, man, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm in the process of getting out of my previous business. Let me take care of business. You take care of content. Let's grow together. And I really did not have any expectations. I thought I was going to work for free for a while. I just really believed in this guy. And within a year, he had 1 million subscribers on YouTube. And we ended up building a business around him. And today we manage some of the most exciting creators in the country. Some of them are, for example, the Blind Surfer. He's the biggest blind creator in the world in San Diego. We manage Andy Morris, who's a star in the Pianist, 9 million followers plus. We manage Emerging Creator of the Year, Manuel Boza. And how we've done that is really to identify the problems that these creators are facing in the process of building their startup. And that's really what all of them are doing. They just don't really realize. And, leverage our business experience, knowledge, and resources and network to ultimately, build the company and generate sales, which is the core part of what we do. At a short story, that's kind of how we got into the business.
That's really cool. I've known a lot of content creators who, they get to that 500,000 subscribers, and all of the filming and editing and posting, and then they've got to work with all of the sponsors and the people who reach out to them, and they're not even intentionally building who those sponsors are. Like, they're just kind of waiting till someone talks to them, and it just gets to be a burden to where they almost don't want to create anymore. So I love the service you bring that frees them from the burden, so they can continue to add the value that they love to bring to their audiences. So very cool.
And if I can, I'll add a point here, because I think this is such an important perspective on the shift that I guess there's in the greater economy is really facing. And we were talking about this before this chat here. Is there's a concept called the reverse entrepreneurship effect, and that is really the problem that I guess we are trying to solve, and that a lot of people are trying to solve in this process, which is most entrepreneurs, like the ones listening and myself, we look to build the best product we can or service we can, and we go after an audience to sell to, where all of these creators and the different verticals and niches they operate under, they have built and they're really good in building the audience and establishing a relationship with the audience through content, through whatever form of media they distribute, and lack the product, the service to ultimately build a sustainable and scalable business. And obviously, like we were discussing, most of them rely on advertisement, and it's extremely difficult to manage all of these things at once because managing production, of content is already a full-time job. And so the biggest point here is how do we help, maximize the audience that these individuals creators have to build business and generate revenue.
Yeah. I mean, great service. It's a great service. So, as you're growing your business and you pass that $1 million mark yourself and off there to the races, what are some of the nuggets? What are some of the insights that you've gained that have helped you build your business past just Patrick hustling and taking care of that first the first two or three clients? What were some of the nuggets after that? Give us some insight.
Our industry operates a little bit differently than most, and that the creator economy is really new and it has a lot of intricacies like any business, but our business is really about relationships. It's really about, industry knowledge and acumen, because for you to make both clients and brands happy and the creator happy, you really have to balance expectations, and it becomes a very complex operation that we have to, tame and really be able to deal with these big personalities and egos and brands that have KPIs and expectations to deliver under. And so one of the biggest lessons in our business is the kind of talent that we onboard internally to manage these processes, because managing, 10, 12 plus influencers that have millions of followers each takes a lot of work, a lot of, babysitting sometimes. And so, in our case, I should say, one great person is better than three okay ones, in terms of the workload, in terms of execution, and different than other businesses where perhaps operation is more streamlined and you can create, SOPs that just kind of run itself. And not saying that businesses like this can't, but there is a level of attention, a level of, expertise that needs to be had in order to deliver at the expectation that we have at STEM. And STEM means success through exceptional management, besides the root of a plant. And obviously, I know there's a double meaning with science, but that's not the intent that we have. But the biggest point here is human capital is the core of my business, and hiring great people is what enables us to move forward, and it makes a big difference. So I think one of the biggest lessons that we've learned is, okays don't drive forward, but good people do.
And I mean, we all know that A players make such a massive difference. I mean, A to a B player is like a 3 to a 10x difference. It just is. It's huge. So, and that's lovely. But answer the question for us: how do you find them, and how do you afford them?
You know, I would break this down into a lot of things, and one thing that we're really involved in, and what we really do is focus on in-person events. There is a thing with meeting people in person that really enables you to really have a better understanding of who they are and what they're about, and really um, finding them at the hotspots, right? Especially with such a small industry, right? It's a huge economy in the creator economy, but really fit with a small group of people. So going to events is one thing that has really found us to be always on the map and finding talent. And in terms of really aligning expectations, or in terms of retaining talent, it really comes down, in my opinion, to aligning expectations, understanding their dreams, and that's something that we really love to do in everything, at STEM, Creator Fest, and everything else that I do. One of the first questions I always ask is, "What is your dream, and can we help you achieve that through the work we do?" And that usually gives people purpose, and everyone needs purpose. So it's really about aligning expectations. It's really about aligning where does the long term vision lie, and can we meet each other during the process? Because again, part of challenges that we face is really looking long term, because things change so much in this. I mean, in every industry, and a lot of the things I'm saying, I guess, apply to every other industry. But coming from different industries, I can tell you that the creator economy is so unique, and it's so ever changing. It's so dynamic because every piece of content is new. It changes. It's bad PR, good PR, and there's this up and down momentum shift with viewership and trends and things like that that really requires you, I should say, to stay on top of your feet. But going back to, I guess the question is really comes down to aligning expectations and making sure that we're aligning on the vision, and can we create, incentives that align with expectations, performance.
I love that insight. I mean, I kind of tossed a ball in a funny way for you to hit and said, how do you find them and how do you afford them? And you didn't dive after the dollar thing. You didn't talk about how to win them over to that. Instead, you went after that thing that the dollar can't buy first, which was tell me about your dreams, right? Tell me about your purpose. Let's tap into that and let's see if our vision as a company really aligns with that. And if it does, we can create something pretty amazing. Right? We could
Yep.
do something because of course, we have to get the pay good enough. We have to take that off the table eventually for them. But the idea when we want to tap into creativity or that untapped discretionary effort of our team members, it only comes if they find meaning and purpose in what they're doing. They feel excited about it. They want to solve those problems. They're thinking about it when they're in the shower because like this matters to them, right? And I love that's what you lead into. Thanks for sharing that, Mecca.
Yeah, and I'm curious on what your perspective is on this as well, because I'm sure everyone has a different one. But I found one thing that has really enabled us to attract talent, and this is again part of our bread and butter, which is having strong individual personal brands in the company. Right, our COO is a leader in the creator economy in terms of she's a keynote speaker. She talks a lot about the industry and where it's heading. So the individual personal brands that we've created in the process has enabled us to attract talent, through LinkedIn, through different social platforms, and by showcasing what we stand for online and through these different domains has also enabled us to acquire great partnerships and talent. Just wanted to add that because that came to mind.
I think that's a huge value add. A lot of times people think, oh yeah, LinkedIn, or I'm going to use one platform for the fun of it. Oh yeah, LinkedIn. I got my profile up there, and on occasion we'll scroll through, but I can look at people's profiles all day, and I don't know if there's any value in it. But when we began to post our ideas, the things we care deeply about, not just, hey, we have this event, you ought to come. Sure, put that out there. But like, here's the impact we're having in the world. Here's what I want to do even more. Who else out there is thinking this way? Engaging in conversation with people around that and becoming known for that. When we post a job posting, even at that time when it was like the great resignation, no one could get any talent and everyone's staying home, we were flooded with applicants, great people who were saying, I want to be a part of this. I want to be a part of this, right? And even when we don't post, people reaching out, I want to be a part of this. Because of that, what you talked about, are we building up the brand? Now I could see you have a gift, a knack. In fact, you built a system around personal brands, building those, managing those. So you guys get that. But you can do the same around a company brand, and then individuals within. I think people are looking to work with the individuals they care most about, the ones that they follow, the ones they want to be around, and they're looking for alignment with that individual and the company. So
And
very cool.
you just touched on something, and I think this is ultimately shaping consumer habits with almost every product that you can imagine. And this is the power of the creator economy, because a lot of the bigger brands and the fastest growing brands are backed by creators, are backed by a personal brand. And I think this is the new era of brand building that we are facing, both on the personal side and on the company side. You think about so many huge case studies of Feastables, right, being backed by the biggest creator in Beast, right? It's already across Walmart, 7-Eleven, Australia, all over the world. You think about Prime with Logan Paul, that's a very prominent one on the news, but there's so many more in different niches that people are not even aware, because if it's a great product that lives as an own 2 feet and it just happens to have a great personal brand attached to it, usually good things come out of it. So completely agree with you.
Yeah, yeah. People are looking more to belong to a tribe, to a community, than they are for a certain product. And
Agree.
and the product is just a way of identifying. See, I belong. And you buy over and over to remain in your community, to be a part of that tribe you care about. So I love that. So Patrick, let's. I mean, we've already pulled some great gems from you. How can we help you? What are you right now at this stage in your business? What are you facing? And maybe we can bring some insight to help your team take its next step forward.
We talked a little bit about this, and and this really comes down to such a unique moment, and I guess in time that we're living in within this new era of media that is so uh, ever changing. And I kind of shared the biggest, and we're talking about teamwork and how do we evolve as a company. And for us, we have our North Star and we know the problem that we're trying to solve in the industry. And the problem is the reverse entrepreneurship effect at its core, which is we have a variety of different communities within our roster, right? We have a creator that has 8 million plus fans with music related. We have, art. We have a movie creator that creates behind the scenes content for Hollywood and TV shows. So we have different pockets of communities that have different interests, right? And for us, it's how do we ultimately, as a company, as a team, capitalize on that audience through brand deals, through sponsorships, right? Acquiring brands that want to sponsor, these communities. And second is how do we build businesses and brands, um, leveraging these audiences and partnerships and the fact that we manage the business of these creators exclusively and some not exclusively to generate business. And part of the biggest problems is forging, strategic partnerships with companies that can make this a win-win, right? If we partnered with a huge shoe company that wants to build a new line of shoes with one of our creators, it's these different initiatives that we have, and it's managing all of them internally and prioritizing based on relevancy and momentum and timing, right? Because
Yeah.
content goes up and down. Long answer to maybe a short answer problem, but transparently, it's how do we align on all of these opportunities? How do we prioritize? Because when we manage creators, it's so dynamic and it's so crazy how things go. And which brand should we build? What partner should we bring in the process? And those are our biggest problems. I mean, really, it's where should we spend our calories? I guess.
Yeah. I, 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 I mean, for all of us listening, right, and part of this show is there are 1,000 great and feeling like urgent things that need to be taken care of now. Like right now, Patrick, I bet you could list 20 things that right now need to happen in your business. And, uh, and that only exists because you've been successful to this point. You have run the formula that has worked, and you've maxed it out. You've got to the point to like, we're doing great. And now we have opportunities galore. And if we don't act on it, the forces above will crush us. If we act on it poorly, we could scatter all over the place. If we do it well, we're set for the next 3 years of growth and challenges that we'll face, and we're going to have to keep changing. But that old formula begins to shift. Part of that shift is, and maybe it's different for you, but I find that as the team gets to 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 people on a team, we have so much work going on, so many in the trenches demands and tasks and things happening that though we have all of these issues buzzing around in our head, we don't take the time to consider them. We don't have the space for them. And so it's always in passing, and it's always going to get to. And we're always talking about, we may chase after some ideas without considering all of them. Or maybe one person only or two people only on the team are really thinking about any strategic anything because everyone else is just running like crazy trying to keep the work moving because of so much workflow, right? And that's kind of how it feels sometimes. I love that you mentioned you've got your North Star. That's kind of probably a nod towards maybe a Jim Collins, the way he talked about let's have our purpose out here. We see where we're headed, but the path can be 1,000 ways. Our strategy will determine, are we going up face? Are we doing switchbacks? Or are we climbing ridge to get to the top of that mountain on the way to North Star? Now, so what I found is that as our team gets bigger, it can be really essential to just take time. So, what kind of time does your team take on the regular to shut off operations? And I don't mean it's shut down. There's some things that are kind of running, but maybe two or three of you at least are getting together and saying, this is our strategic thinking and our priority setting, because that was the word you leaned in on. Said, how do I prioritize which work we do when? And so, what time do you set aside today on regular to do that with your key leaders?
You know, um, A big thing that happened to us this year, and what has maybe shifted our priorities and our ability to maybe work on the business instead of in the business, if I may, and maybe that's part of what you're saying, is the fact that we got involved in a huge event in Creator Fest, which is, the only event, actually, believe it or not, in the creator economy and the entire influencer social media space that focuses on business. Every other event for creators, like if you think about the major events, VidCon, it's a fan experience that happens to have creators in industry. There's Vid Summit, it's content focused. And now we're involved in this, hopefully 1,000 plus, creator and industry event focused on business, that is happening 30 days from now. And so when we decided to move this venture, that became part of our priority. And all things have to be complementary for both missions. What we want to leverage and maximize from this event, what do we want to do directly for the clients that we manage? And because the work that we do at STEM is managing others' business, a lot of our priorities are set by our clients and the goals that they have, right? It's like, look, this month, this is what Groovy Gavin wants to accomplish. This is what Tyler wants to accomplish. And we set priorities based on our clients because in the management business, most agencies prioritize themselves. We prioritize our clients, and that's really what brought us here. It's not necessarily what's good for us; it's what's good for our creator, our client, and that really has set us apart. Because although it sounds like an obvious one, when the incentives are aligned for you to make money, you sometimes want to put yourself first. But in the end of the day, it's the interest of the client and the longevity of the client that's going to help you reach your goals. So to answer, and I went around your question, but you know the time that we set for priorities is really focused on the priorities of our clients and the feedback that we've gotten for the entire week and what do we need to accomplish the following month. And we work in a cyclical industry. We are planning 2 months ahead, so we're all, we have to, or else advertisement just doesn't flow. So maybe not enough, but I think post Creator Fest, it's gonna clear things up a little
Yeah,
bit.
it's already stepping up a little bit too, though, as you had to work on another thing and say, how are we building our business to best respond to the customers? And you've got a rhythm in place to ensure you're thinking ahead for what your customers' greatest priorities are. And those are fantastic. But what I would suggest, and maybe it's after this 30-day, this big event you have coming up, but to stop and once a quarter, set aside 2 days. And that may seem like a lot, or maybe one day, 2 days once a year, one day all the other quarters, to just stop and reflect. First thing, go through the process of saying, okay, let's celebrate what's gone really well. Let's talk about the lessons learned about how our business is serving the needs of our customers every day or where we're missing. And let's think about this, right? Just take time to reflect. Then take time to identify where are our true strengths and our weaknesses and what opportunities are out there and threats. This simple SWOT analysis, but taking the time every quarter to think through it can then set up the team. They're kind of thinking big about the business now, right? They're thinking about industry trends, and they're talking about technological shifts, and they're talking about social changes and political stuff, and they're talking about demographic shifts, all of this sort of stuff that's playing into and affecting your customers and your industry, right? Those are the things we have to understand. Your customers, their followers, and your industry and what's happening within it. When you kind of get this landscape, then the question starts to be, okay, we know our North Star and we see where our goals are over the next 3, 4, 5 years. What has to happen? How can we achieve this? What strength do we have to build or strength do we have to leverage? How are we going to tackle this challenge given X, Y, and Z? How will we go and do the following given these problems? How do we X given Y? Right? We see all these issues. We see these opportunities. We see these weaknesses. And let's just take the time to ask the questions. And then when we get a lot of those questions up there, in order to hit our mission, in order to go after this North Star, what's missing? What has to be done next? Now your teams put a list together of these every single quarter, and then they have to go through the discipline of saying, now we only get to choose one because that's a priority. Now, if you can nail the one, knock it out of the ballpark, I'm great with you meeting in 3 weeks and picking another. But usually that priority is going to be big enough. It's going to take all quarter to pull off or all year. and we're doing a piece of it this quarter and a piece of it next quarter. But let's get crystal clear for the team. So everybody knows there are so many great things to do, but there is one thing that's essential. And picking the priority together will help you to move faster. Now, if your industry is changing super rapidly, you may want to meet every 2 months or every month to reconsider. But I don't think it's changing at that pace. I bet quarterly would keep up. You decide, you can see where you're at and how things are moving. But then pick that priority. Build a team around the priority, not as their full time job, this is extra credit stuff. This is getting to work with the boss. This is fun, creative things, right? So you've done your day job. Now you get to work on some strategic things, but pick the priority based on the strategy that you've chosen for this quarter that's aligned with what your customers needed, that's aligned with the changes in the industry, all that sort of stuff. You say, this is the one that's going to help us stand out. This is the one that's going to help us win right now. And if you don't take that time, you're going to try to chase a lot of stuff, and a lot of things will be half baked. Well, if you take the time, you're going to get really good, and your team's going to say, no, to really build the strength, we're going to have to pull it off like this. And it's going to have to be baked into our process. And this is how we're going to do it. And they're going to lay out a whole roadmap, like project management, the same way you're doing for this event in 30 days. That kind of intensity your whole team's pulling together. We know because we do events too. Imagine that around a priority, a new skill you're going to build in the business. We're going to be able to identify top level endorsers who want to tap into 75% of our influencers. So now we can do big deals that benefit everybody, right? Why? Because we built the muscle to do it, and we have the technology backing us, and we've got the systems that we can follow, and we built the team skills to deliver against it. We built the new strength. That's the kind of level priority we're talking about. Not like fix our employee handbook or some kind of garbage like that, but like something big that really matters right now. That makes sense?
It does. And um, I think that we're very aligned on a lot of things. And even I think what I described to you in the beginning of the call, I think that is us setting our priorities for a specific necessity that we have. And so I think we're on track to solve that way.
I think that's great. If there's a last thing I can throw in there just for the fun of it, is when you pick the priority, you've already got awesome, like a meeting rhythm around caring for your customers and noticing what they most need, that 2 months, what we're doing this month, what we're doing today. Build out a rhythm like that for this little ad hoc kind of special forces team. I mean, they're going to come together, this group, to solve this problem, and then they'll disband. They'll go back to their own places. They don't have to report to whoever's in charge of the priority, but make sure that they're meeting once a week or twice a week or once every couple of weeks, just for 10 or 15 minutes to say, how are we on all of the sub goals that have to be hit? We call them our smarts, these sub tasks that have to be hit in order to meet that top goal. Just get them in a rhythm. Oh, yeah, we're the building team. We're going to go in, we're going to do an awesome job. We're going to report back to the whole company. We're going to celebrate big as a company. And then we disband, right? But they need to have a rhythm, and someone has to own it. That's the leader pulling it together. And now we've got something really cool building in a new strength within the business. So just a thought as you go and do that to make sure it moves forward solidly.
Exciting. Yeah, no, I like it. Out of curiosity, what are your goals?
Oh, so let's go first with our purpose is to realize potential, to help others realize their potential, become aware of, and then make it real. And then I've got a mission of 1,500 potentials realized in 2026. And we have a very specific way of measuring that. Right now, my team's main focus within this is we've always done client acquisition off of word of mouth. And in order to do 1,500 in 2026 is a massive growth for our business. And so we have to build the muscle of customer acquisition outside of referral. So the referral thing's still going and moving, but the kind of growth that's required will require us to get better at building a lead source, doing all that sort of thing. And so I've got various team members working in and working content and trying out new lead source things and how to do that. We've got a sales team learning how to actually work someone through a sales process. rudimentary things, elementary things, I should say, for a lot of businesses listening in, but not something we've had to master yet. And so we're building a marketing sales strength, an ability to attract not any client, but the right types of clients into our community. That's what we're building right now. We're about halfway through that priority where we're now seeing regular lead gen coming in and we're getting better at the closing, but we've got a ways to go. And then we have to do the building of the team behind it. So, good question. That's where mine is right now. It's like, wait, you're building a sales strength right now? Yeah, we probably should have had it, but that's what we're building today.
Really interesting, and it seems like and this is kind of the tendency that we were speaking in this call, is the tendency to create individual personal brands, look at content and media as a very scalable domain of acquiring clients. And if we think about it, there's a lot of different businesses, and most businesses are having to take have to take this strategy in one way or another to capture new clients. So building community is everything.
That's where our play is today, and we're working it. Patrick, great having you on the call today. Thank you so much. How do people? Let's just put it out there. If someone wants to attend your event, how do they find it? How will they come to that event?
It's called creatorfest.events. It's in Orlando, Florida, August 15th to the 18th. We have some of the most exciting speakers in the country. We have Scott DeClary, which is one of the biggest entrepreneurship podcasts. We have Ty Lopez. We have Eddie Malouf, who's in over $1 billion online product sales. We have Snapchat School of Business at the event. We have a lot of really cool people. So I'm super excited. Jubilee, 15 million subscribers. We have a lot of really interesting, unique entrepreneurs and businesses that are sharing the story. So creatorfest.events.
Fantastic. Thanks again for participating, being part of this episode
Likewise.
of the Seven Figure Journey podcast. For any of our listeners who enjoyed, found some nuggets in there, some real value, please like, share, do what's necessary to get it to other seven figure business owners so they can be part of this community with us. Keep learning, striving, growing, and caring about your team. Until next time.